The next morning it was clear that war was declared against the Bredes. They came down to breakfast somewhat late, and, as soon as they arrived, the Biggleses swooped up the last fragments that remained on their plates and made a stately march out of the dining-room. Then Mrs. Hoogencamp arose and departed, leaving a whole fish-ball on her plate. Even as Atalanta might have dropped an apple behind her to tempt her pursuer to check his speed, so Miss Hoogencamp left that fish-ball behind her, and between her maiden self and contamination. We had finished our breakfast, my wife and I, before the Bredes appeared. We talked it over and agreed that we were glad that we had not been obliged to take sides upon such insufficient testimony. After breakfast it was the custom of the male half of the Jacobus household to go around the corner of the building and smoke their pipes and cigars where they would not annoy the ladies. We sat under a trellis covered with a grapevine that had borne no grapes in the memory of man. This vine, however, bore leaves, and these, on that pleasant summer morning, shielded us from two persons who were in earnest conversation in the straggling, half-dead flower-garden at the side of the house. "I don't want," we heard Mr. Jacobus say, "to enter in no man's privacy, but I do want to know who it may be like that I have in my house. Now, what I ask of you, and I don't want you to take it as in no ways personal, is, have you your marriage license with you?" "No," we heard the voice of Mr. Brede reply. "Have you yours?" I think it was a chance shot, but it told all the same. The Major, he was a widower, and Mr. Biggle and I looked at each other, and Mr. Jacobus on the other side of the grape trellis looked at, I don't know what, and was as silent as we were. Where is your marriage license, married reader? Do you know? 4 men, not including Mr. Brede, stood or sat on one side or the other of that grape trellis, and not one of them knew where his marriage license was. Each of us had had one. The Major had had 3. But where were they? Where is yours? Tucked in your best man's pocket? Deposited in his desk, or washed to a pulp in his white waistcoat, if white waistcoats be the fashion of the hour? Washed out of existence? Can you tell where it is? Can you? Unless you are one of those people who frame that interesting document and hang it upon their drawing-room walls? Mr. Brede's voice arose after an awful stillness of what seemed like 5 minutes, and was probably 30 seconds. "Mr. Jacobus, will you make out your bill at once and let me pay it? I shall leave by the 6 o'clock train, and will you also send the wagon for my trunks?" "I ain't said I wanted to have you leave," began Mr. Jacobus, but Brede cut him short. "Bring me your bill." "But," remonstrated Jacobus, "if you ain't—" "Bring me your bill," said Mr. Brede. My wife and I went out for our morning's walk, but it seemed to us, when we looked at our view, as if we could only see those invisible villages of which Brede had told us, that other side of the ridges and rises of which we catch no glimpse from lofty hills or from the heights of human self-esteem. We meant to stay out until the Bredes had taken their departure, but we returned just in time to see Pete, the Jacobus darky, the blacker of boots, the brasher of coats, the general handyman of the house, loading the Brede trunks on the Jacobus wagon. And as we stepped upon the veranda, down came Mrs. Brede, leaning on Mr. Brede's arm, as though she were ill, and it was clear that she had been crying. There were heavy rings about her pretty black eyes. My wife took a step toward her. "Look at that dress, dear," she whispered. "She never thought anything like this was going to happen when she put that on." It was a pretty, delicate, dainty dress, a graceful, narrow-striped affair. Her hat was trimmed with a narrow-striped silk of the same colors, maroon and white, and in her hand she held a parasol that matched her dress. "She's had a new dress on twice a day," said my wife, "but that's the prettiest yet. Oh, somehow, I'm awfully sorry they're going." But going they were. They moved toward the steps. Mrs. Brede looked toward my wife, and my wife moved toward Mrs. Brede. But the ostracized woman, as though she felt the deep humiliation of her position, turned sharply away and opened her parasol to shield her eyes from the sun. A shower of rice, a half-pound shower of rice, fell down over her pretty hat and her pretty dress, and fell in a spattering circle on the floor, outlining her skirts, and there it lay in a broad, uneven band, bright in the morning sun. Mrs. Brede was in my wife's arms, sobbing as if her young heart would break. "Oh, you poor, dear, silly children!" my wife cried as Mrs. Brede sobbed on her shoulder. "Why didn't you tell us?" We didn't want to be taken for a bridal couple," sobbed Mrs. Brede, "and we didn't dream what awful lies we'd have to tell, and all the awful mixed-upness of it. Oh, dear, dear, dear." "Pete," commanded Mr. Jacobus, "put back them trunks. These folks stays here as long as they wants ter. Mr. Brede," he held out a large, hard hand, "I'd oughter have known better," he said, and my last doubt of Mr. Brede vanished as he shook that grimy hand in manly fashion. The two women were walking off toward our view, each with an arm about the other's waist, touched by a sudden sisterhood of sympathy. "Gentlemen," said Mr. Brede, addressing Jacobus, Biggle, the Major, and me, "there is a hostelry down the street where they sell honest New Jersey beer. I recognize the obligations of the situation." We 5 men filed down the street. The 2 women went toward the pleasant slope where the sunlight gilded the forehead of the great hill. On Mr. Jacobus's veranda lay a spattered circle of shining grains of rice. 2 of Mr. Jacobus's pigeons flew down and picked up the shining grains, making grateful noises far down in their throats. End of The Nice People.